I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Thank y'all for coming out tonight. So the first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from, we got 3 sets of them. The strategic planning retreat from January the 20th, our regular town council meeting from February the 13th, and our regular town council meeting from February the 27th. Has anybody got any changes, corrections, comments? No? If not, we'll approve those minutes as submitted. Next item on the agenda is the report of the town manager, Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Mayor Black, members of council. I want to give a very brief update on the Bedford Middle School project. I'll let you know that I spoke with Dave McCormick yesterday. The police department conducted a security assessment of the property this past weekend, and I passed that information along to him via email, which was part of our discussion when he was before us last time, I believe. Also wanted to note on an administrative matter that the proposed fiscal year 24-25 budget will be presented at the next council meeting on March 26th. That's being developed by staff with input from the Finance Committee. Council can then schedule work sessions at its discretion to review the document before our targeted final adoption date of May 28th. And that concludes my report, but I'll be happy to respond to any questions you have.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Warner? All right. Next, appearances before council. We have 2 this evening. The first one signed up is Mr. Hackworth.
And we also have Dr. Bergen.
And we have Dr. Bergen and Dr. Woodford here from the school system, and they're going to give us some update on some stuff here. And so, Mr. Hackworth, if you would, just come up and give us your name, your address, and give us your thoughts.
Getting up in front of people is not one of my big things. I'm Billy Hackworth. I live on Pinecrest Avenue. In Sunday school about 3 or 4 weeks ago, someone mentioned the fact that they thought it was a fact that the police chief had the "In God We Trust" removed from the automobiles. Some said they had heard it, some said they hadn't. So they asked me to check on it. I talked to the chief. He said he'd done it. And they're not too pleased there in that class, plus several churches that I've had people speak to me about it. And they want them put back on. I talked to, I'll leave this off anyway, they want it put back on. If it's not put back on, I think you're going to make the news in a way you don't want to. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions?
Not this time. Thank you. All right. Next, Dr. Bergen.
Okay.
Dr. Wood.
That might be something for you to weigh in on.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, council members, Mayor Black, Mr. Warner, and everyone else in the room today. I'm Dr. Bergen, Superintendent of Schools. And I understand at your last meeting, there was some discussion about the efficiency options that are before the school board at this time. And you might have some questions about those efficiency options. So Bart and I had a conversation right after your last council meeting, and we went through some of those questions and concerns together, and then I suggested to Bart maybe I should just come and see if I can answer any questions for you. And I asked Dr. Woodford, our deputy superintendent, to join me tonight. So before I introduce her to talk about the 4 efficiency options, I just wanted to summarize briefly for you all, if you weren't already aware, why we're having these discussions about some efficiency options at the request of the school board. So first of all, just for context, the school division has shrunk in size over the last decade or so. At one time, there were about 12,000 students educated in Bedford County. Now there's just about 9,000. The reasons for the slow decline over the decade, in no particular order, because by the way, the decline in Bedford County is the decline everywhere west of Richmond. There's a very interesting report put out by a think tank, Weldon Cooper Institute out of University of Virginia. If you'd like the report, I'd be happy to send it to you through Bart. But pretty much everyone west of Virginia has been declining in enrollment because the population has aged and the birth rates have declined. If you look at a map of Virginia and you exclude Richmond, Northern Virginia, and Hampton Roads, just take those 3 regions out, look at all the other 100 counties in Virginia, and you look at the demographics, Virginia would be the oldest state in the Union. More seniors, more people of my age and older than any other state, if you look at that region. So that's a big part of the decline from 12,000 to 9,000 students. And birth rates nationally have declined since the Great Recession. So, you know, I anecdotally say my dad was 1 of 9, I'm 1 of 5. I have 2 kids. One of my children doesn't have a child yet. Same thing with my brothers and sisters. It's just families are smaller. Maybe that's true with you all as well. If you think about number of kids you have and the number of kids your kids have. So because we've declined in enrollment size, it begs the question: do we need to continue to operate the number of buildings that we have? Are we being efficient? Hence the efficiency options for the number of buildings in Bedford County. So that's point number 1. Point number 2. The budget for the school division is going to significantly decrease in the 28-29 school year. There's a clock ticking that's been ticking since the city of Bedford reverted to the town of Bedford. There was a deal struck at that time. I wasn't here then. That's going on, what, 10, 12 years ago now? That the state of Virginia would continue to fund the county of Bedford for the public schools at the same LCI, or local composite index, as was the LCI for the city of Bedford at that time. And at that time, the LCI in the city of Bedford was 0.31. What that means generally is the locality is responsible for 31 cents on the dollar and the state's kicking in the other 69 cents. And that was set for 15 years. Although every other county, every other year, the LCI is recalculated. And the actual LCI in Bedford County, I think last check was 0.44. That means the locality really, in any other locality, would be paying 44 cents on the dollar, right? And the state would be picking up 56. But that's not the case. The state continues to kick in 69 cents. So there's, some would say, the schools are being overfunded or an excess of funding from the state. So what I've been doing since my arrival here, talking with Robert Hiss, my school board, and through Robert with the Board of Supervisors, is to set money aside. So every time we get new money from the state, we set some of it aside to build up a reserve for what we've been referring to as the reversion cliff. That cliff in 28-29, with the difference in the LCI, is going to be, unless things change, and I don't think they're going to change. I think Bedford County is going to just continue to grow wealthier over the next several years with all the development in forest, at least $8 million. So that means in 1 year, the state will stop funding the county schools by at least $8 million to operate schools. And 80% of any school division's budget is people. And so if we lost $8 million and we didn't have a plan in place to replace it, you're talking a significant layoff of people, just a lot of people losing their jobs. So this is what's driving the conversation. Decline in enrollment, efficiencies might be necessary, and finding budget savings to build up to leading to the 28-29 school year. So the Board of Supervisors has been putting money aside, the school board has been putting money aside, and we're on track right now to get to or close to the $8 million with the savings plan that we put in place. So the Board of Education is also concerned, as I am, that when we get to that year and we've made the savings of, let's say, $8 million, We transfer the money back into the operating budget, so, you know, there's no hiccups and no change with the operating budget. But then we don't have any money, we have zero money for just ongoing maintenance. Because that's how, I say we're building up a reserve. We're also spending it as we go. So we're taking the money, and instead of spending it in the operating budget, we're putting it into maintenance projects. We're doing HVAC, we're doing roofing, we're doing carpeting, we're doing painting, we're doing parking lots. We're spending the money to maintain the buildings we have. So that's our capital improvement plan. So if you've looked at the efficiency options, you've heard about them, all 4 of them include a closure of one school, and that one school is Stewartsville Elementary. That was selected because, a number of reasons. One, it has the lowest capacity percentage in the county. At one time, there were 900 kids that went to Stewartsville. Now there are 315. There's about a third of the number of kids the building has there were at one time. Karen, Dr. Woodford, was principal at the school at one time, 900 kids. Because there's just, again, declining enrollment, aging population, low birth rates. We're operating that school at 50% capacity. It's also overdue or due for a roof replacement and an HVAC system. It's going to cost millions of dollars just for the roof and the HVAC. But when you go into the school to replace a 100-year-old roof in some portions, the building was built 150 years ago, and you get into the walls for the HVAC and the electrical work, you're going to find more problems. So a lot of people in the community are saying, well, what exactly is it going to cost to do the HVAC and the roofing? Well, until we go out to bid, we don't know, and until we have an engineer study it, we don't know, but we can reliably save millions of dollars. So this is what's before the board right now. Should they now do the roof and the HVAC on Stewartsville and keep it in the inventory of schools with all this information that I provided you, knowing there's a reversion cliff coming and knowing that we have a declining enrollment, and do we need, Mary, did I just mess you up? Okay. So the board asked us to create, if we were to close Stewartsville, the board asked us to create a plan, like what would you do? So Karen is going to, or Dr. Woodford's going to review for you the 4 options. They all include the closure of the school. But the board said, and while you're doing that, we also would like you to talk to us and give us your thoughts as an administration for efficiency for the Forest Zone as well. Because we've been talking about the Forest Zone since I got here. Where not all the building, but a significant amount of the building is happening in the Forest Zone. You all know that, you've driven out that way. The elementary schools in the Forest Zone are at or over capacity, whereas in the Stanton River Zone and the Liberty, they're below. Matter of fact, on average, we're about 70% capacity in the Liberty and Stanton River zones, 56% at the Stanton River at Stewartsville. But we're at 110% capacity at Forest Elementary School in New London, and growing towards that in the other schools that feed there. So they said, give us some efficiency options for that. That's option 3, which Dr. Woodford's going to talk about. And I said, and while you're at it, talk to us about the efficiency options in the Liberty Zone, and that's option 4. So we're going to go through those 4 options, and then we're going to take your questions and answer any questions you'd like us to tonight. And if you want additional information,
So, as Dr. Bergen said, our board did ask us to look at efficiency options, and the one thing that we really want to make you aware of is that the board doesn't have to choose any of the 4 options. I think some people look at the options and think that one of the 4 have to be chosen. These are options for efficiency, and so the board could choose to do none of those options, or they may take pieces of the options and make a whole new option. So again, as Dr. Bergen said, we were asked to think specifically about Stewartsville Elementary to start with because of the growing maintenance needs there. So our first option is just to deal with Stewartsville and the Stanton River Zone schools. So in the first option, we would decommission Stewartsville Elementary, and we would relocate the Stewartsville Elementary students to Montvale Elementary and Goodview Elementary. Unfortunately, with the number of preschools and students we have in Stewartsville, A portion of those students, are about 40 families who could go over to Montvale Elementary, and then the rest would go to Goodview. What happens though is that because of the size of Goodview, some of the students at Goodview would then have to be rezoned to Moneta, and some of those Moneta students rezoned to Huddleston. So in essence, if we decommission Stewartsville, we would have to rezone the entire Stanton River area. It also has that caveat of we also have to move some students to the Montvale area, which is the Liberty Zone school. So that would disrupt some of our middle and high schoolers currently going to Stanton River Middle School and Stanton River High School, because it would move them to the Liberty Zone. I will say that when we presented this option to the board, we did tell them that this was our least favorite option because it's disrupting lots of families in the Stanton River Zone if we were to decommission Stewartsville and just move our students to the schools right around them. And it would also cause some issues with our preschools. We're very proud that we have so many preschool programs. We don't even take all of the money the state offers for preschoolers because of space. And so we would have to close some of our preschools at Goodview, Moneta, and Huddleston to make all of the students fit. So because that option wasn't as appealing to us as a group, we thought, okay, what else could we do? So that brings option 2, which is to still decommission Stewartsville Elementary, and then relocate the preschool through 4th grade students from Stewartsville to Goodview. That would mean that we would reconfigure all of our elementary schools in the Stanton River Zone to be pre-K 4 schools, and we would move our 5th graders up to the middle school building. And I think that's important to say. We're moving them to the middle school building. We're not making them middle schoolers. We're moving them to a facility where we can house them. We have room for them. And then we would move our 8th graders up to the high school buildings, because our middle schools and high schools are where we have room. And we've also, since building Liberty Middle School and adding on to Forest Middle School, we have lots of capacity at the middle and high school level. So if we go with option 2, we would be able to keep our preschools open and our elementary schools, which is very, very important for our students in Bedford County, for them to get those preschool options. We don't have a lot of preschool options available to our families throughout the Bedford County, so I think we fill a need and a gap that's really important here in Bedford. But option 2 would be a reconfiguration of grade levels, so pre-K to 4 in our elementary buildings, 5th through 7th in our middle school buildings, and 8th through 12th at our high school buildings. As Dr. Bergen said, we were then asked, okay, now let's look a little bit broader. What other efficiencies can you offer? And so we looked at our option 3, was really focusing on the forest zone. There has been talk over the last several years about the fact that our forest elementary schools are reaching and exceeding capacities. And where are we going to put all of the children? If you go through Forest right now, off of 460 at New London, you see all of these housing developments going up. We are looking at those housing developments, doing some estimations about how many students that will bring into our schools. And we pretty soon are going to have an overcrowding problem in Forest. So to prevent the building of another elementary school, which will cost $25 to $30 million in the Forest Zone, we said, let's look at reconfiguring the grade levels in Forest exactly the way we would do if we decommissioned Stewartsville. That would keep our pre-Ks. It would move our 5th graders up to our middle school in Forest, which has just been expanded. It has lots of room. And let's move our 8th graders up to Jefferson Forest High School. That's always had a large capacity of about 1,600 students. Again, I just want to emphasize, and this is something we've tried to emphasize to parents, we're not trying to make these students middle schoolers or high schoolers. We are trying to put them in a building we have capacity in, but they're still going to be treated like 5th graders. They're still going to be treated like 8th graders. And actually, 8th graders, they play sports with high schoolers. They go up for advanced classes. So there's a lot of interaction between high schoolers and 8th graders anyway. And then our final option was the only zone we had not looked at was the Liberty Zone. Right now, our board has been considering adding a gym to Bedford Primary. And so we looked at what would that look like if we don't have a gym. It's not appealing not to have a gym at Bedford Primary when you have a lot of older students and you have a full school, because you are rotating between a cafeteria and a gym all day long, which works when it's nice and sunny outside, but not so much when it's raining or cold. And so our option 3 would be to continue to decommission Stewartsville, do the regrade configurations in the Stanton River Zone and the Forest Zone. And then what we would do would we would reconfigure the grade levels in the Liberty Zone also, making Bedford Elementary a K-4 school. Bedford Primary and Bedford Elementary are tied together for what we call federal accountability and our state accountability. So whatever Bedford Elementary does on test scores and performance, that affects Bedford Primary too. I've been doing school improvement with these schools for almost 16 years, and every time we get into talking about how can we make that curriculum more cohesive, we always get the suggestion, have you thought about making Bedford Elementary a K-5 school? It's not large enough for a K-5 school. If we just made it a K-5 school, we would be sacrificing our preschoolers again, which we don't want to do. So our thought was to reconfigure the Liberty Zone just like we do the other 2 zones, because we have this beautiful Liberty Middle School now that we have some room there. But we want to keep Bedford Primary open. We want to keep it open as a preschool center. We currently have the most preschool programs right now in any school in Bedford at Bedford Primary. Prior to talking about any of these options, we had already decided that we were going to take one of our classes at Susie Gibson, our early childhood class. They currently at Gibson have a couple of students who come over for preschool half a day during the week. We actually are going to move that teacher and those kids to Bedford Primary, so they are working with all of those preschoolers there, and they're getting lots of experience from multiple teachers. So we'd already kind of decided to do that to give Gibson, our CTE building, more room to add on some more CTE programs there. And so this just kind of works. If it's a preschool center, we would be able to accept all of the money from the state that they offer us, and we would be able to add 3 more preschool programs to Bedford Primary. So we could have 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds at Bedford Primary. The reason we don't want to close the school is because we see the potential for a lot of economic growth in Bedford. So we want to have that school in our inventory. We want to continue maintenance on it. We want it to be a part of our school system. We're not talking about closing the doors. We're trying to use it more efficiently and then hope that growth will bring it back to being possibly a K-4 school or, you know, a pre-K school through 2nd grade like it is now. One of the things that we have talked about, if we have a building like Bedford Primary, we have a lot of itinerant staff who they don't work in one school. They might be an occupational therapist and they travel around. And they take up space. Right now we have some OTs and PTs who have a whole classroom at Gibson. Well, we need that room at Gibson for CTE programs. So we could move them to this building. They're all Bedford County staff, and they would hold their equipment there, and then they would travel to the schools they need to travel to. So we're looking specifically at our staff, and we're not talking about administrative staff. We're talking about people who work in buildings. It could be speech therapists, it could be our occupational therapist, it could be our instructional technology crew, our ITs who go out and work on computers. And the other thing that currently we pay rent to a facility now so that our IT department can have hardware delivered, they can spread it out, they can work. We could save some money if we just gave them a couple of classrooms at Bedford Primary, if we have it, after we add those preschools. So all of what we're talking about at Bedford Primary could easily be moved back out. It's not any permanent changes to the building. We're not reconfiguring, we're not renovating, we're not doing anything. We're just trying to use that space more efficiently. So option 4 directly affects Bedford Primary and Bedford Elementary, and I know that's what you all are most concerned about as the town council. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that option or any of the other options that you may have. I know people are reaching out to you, and we want to try to answer questions and share any information that we might have.
Yeah, I can start. So, I've talked to a lot of people in our community, and they have a feeling that rezoning is an option that we could have, but it's not even discussed. Because education is important to the children here. And we have parents in the Liberty Zone who send their children to Forest because they think it's a better education for them. Education is important for the students here,
Absolutely.
and I know you know this.
Yeah.
But it's also important to the economic development because if the people want to move here because they want to get their children a good education. So
Right.
why wasn't that considered when you were considering all your options?
So actually, we presented redistricting options since Dr. Bergen has been here in the last 3 years. And we presented 3 different zoning options, and all 3 were voted down. So we felt like our board had been clear to us that that wasn't something they wanted to consider, so we did not add it back into the options. We did tell them anything we've ever shared before is an option, so they could go back to that. They've heard that a lot from parents, and so I think we have had some questions just to our office about that. And we've told them we can pull those options back out. But they did have public comment on it, and they had parents come who were very against it. And so they voted that down just in the last 3 years.
And so with the rezoning, would that alleviate putting the 8th graders in if you did that, would that help alleviate some of that?
I think it depends on where we are able. When we presented rezoning options, the options were to try to move more students to the Liberty Middle, Liberty High School zone to alleviate some of that growth that we were having in Forest, and also to kind of move some of our New London, that group over, but also to look up 460 going to Bedford Elementary, because we had some families that we felt like that were going to New London that we could rezone to Bedford Elementary. So our goal was to alleviate some of that stress on the Forest schools, but also add some students to the Liberty zone. So those were the options we presented them.
Thank you.
They went through most of what I was. Did he?
I'm kind of along the same lines as Todd. I've never understood why the board would never redistrict. I mean, you just stood there and told me JF is 110% overcrowded. Liberty,
The Forest zone elementary schools.
Forest Zone, whatever.
Yeah.
Liberty is 70%. Would it not make sense? I know you have presented it. Isn't that a common sense approach? I'm sorry. So is it just that the parents don't want their students going anywhere else, or do you know?
I don't know. I think what we've heard in public comment is that everyone loves their schools. So their kids have gone to those schools, we've gone to those schools, their grandparents have gone to those schools. So I think the parents' feeling is we don't want our children to be moved out of the schools they're familiar with. And
Yeah, and all this is in the public record, and anybody can go back and watch the discussion and read the minutes from those board meetings. Travel time was also a consideration, John. So all of our elementary schools are clean feeders, meaning all the kids go to the same middle school and the same high school, except Otter River. Otter River is the only one that's split. So some of the kids go to the Liberty Zone and some of the kids go to the JF Zone. And so we sort of honed in on that one and said to our board, if we were to make Otter River solely a forest feeder and take the families that are currently zoned for Liberty and just move those children out of Otter River and move them to Bedford, because they're already going to Liberty Middle and Liberty High. And while we're moving those kids, move some more. So shift the lines west, if you will, to bring more forest towards the town. It would help alleviate some of the overcrowding in the forest. So we did discuss that. That does nothing for option 1 and option 2, which is closing of Stewartsville. So it's related, but separate. It would eliminate the need for option 3 with rezoning, with having to reconfigure the elementary schools to only go through 4th grade and moving the 5th graders up to middle school. If we were to shift lines and bring people west. And we looked at trying to get some kids out of the Forest Elementary Zone up to Big Island, which also is dramatically under capacity. I mean, Big Island can hold 500, 600 kids. Well, 300, they have 150 kids.
More than that.
I mean, we could certainly house more children at Big Island Elementary School. I live up in Big Island, but the distance, and there isn't a clean way to get there. I mean, you've driven those roads, it's literally over the river through the woods. So the distance, the travel time, and the changing of the feeder pattern, the school board heard lots of public comment and did not have momentum. So by consensus, they rejected the rezoning. But I appreciate the question.
But I can fully understand that, and I understand what you're saying. I really do. I was at Liberty High School in '72. JF opened in '73. Those seniors were given the choice of graduating from Liberty or being the first at Forest. Some stayed, some went.
Yeah,
But to this day, those classes still have reunions together. What I'm saying is, over time, they get over that. Someone just has to make the tough decision. Nobody will.
yeah,
And it's, to me, I'm being blunt here, it's leadership. I'm sorry, nobody will take the bull by the horns and make that decision to redistrict. Just like what Todd just said. It's, we don't want our kids going anywhere else. Well, sorry, at what point does someone say all the schools are equal? And that's been my beef for years. Now Liberty is at, what, 600? When I was there, it was at 1,300. And yes, the 8th grade was out there. But that was 50 years ago.
yeah, yeah,
You know, times have changed quite a bit.
right.
And I'm very disappointed in the school board. I know y'all's hands are tied, I get that. I'm not fussing at you, I get it. But at the same time, it's all about the Forest area, and I think that's where we're fed up, and that's what we're all hearing. I'm tired, been tired of it. My kids, both my boys went to Liberty, graduated, both accepted at James Madison and graduated. They did great there. But what is the problem? I'm going to stop. Thank you.
Sure.
So pretty much what they said, you know, it ain't all about Forest. It's about everybody. You know, the whole point is we want to have the same representation from the school board. Instead of representing all one area, it should be the same representation through the whole county, my point. And I do have a question. You was talking about administration staff, only staff was, y'all plan on keeping administration staff at the building down here, or where you're originally at now, or how is that gonna work?
You're talking about Bedford Primary?
No, down here at the old, yeah, the offices, so they gonna still stay open?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Okay.
We're in 2 buildings right now, but we just did some significant renovations into the one building where most of our staff is
Okay, I
housed.
just wanted, you said won't no administration staff is gonna be if y'all did go to that option, so that's why.
No, it doesn't affect that at all.
And I do want to say, we currently have 2 preschool lead teachers who oversee our VPI and our special education preschool. They are in 2 totally different schools. One is in the Forest Zone and one is in the Stand River Zone. Now, we would bring them to Bedford Primary because they oversee preschool programs. So what better place to have them there than with the majority of our preschools? So I just wanted to be transparent about that. The 2 lead teachers for preschool would come.
Thank you.
Just one general comment about, you know, because I've heard this since I arrived here, you know, one zone gets everything. Before the school board right now is an unsolicited PPEA to do significant capital improvements to Liberty High School and Stand River High School. To completely renovate the auditoriums and modernize them so that the amenities to our students at Liberty and Stand River are the same as they are at Forest. And that has momentum, and that is moving forward. The Board of Supervisors have already signaled their support of funding that. And within, if not this next board meeting, within the next several board cycles, the Board of Education is going to execute a contract for that unsolicited PPA. You're going to see some significant capital improvements to the Liberty Zone and the Stand River Zone high school campuses. Overdue and much needed. And right now, you mentioned about kids choosing between the 2 high schools. They still can. I mean, we have open enrollment. We actually, I ran these numbers for the board. We have more kids who live in Liberty I'm sorry, we have more kids who live in the JF zone who attend Liberty every day by choice than the reverse. So and they're probably children of staff who their parents are working in the Liberty zone. Not necessarily though, but we have more kids coming from JF to Liberty High School than we have from Liberty High School going to JF. So, but those are family choices. Families can choose where they want their kids to go to middle school or high school if they can provide the transportation. So I just want to make those general comments. But I appreciate the sentiment. I have heard it. And did you have any more questions for us, Mr. Black?
Oh, yes. We got a few more.
Okay.
If you don't, we haven't gotten mine yet.
I'm hearing all of this, and I'm understanding all of this. And you know, I graduated from working in the school system as a custodian, and you see everything. I've seen them grow, but my concern now is what is this going to do to kids, changing them, switching them around? What is it going to do? They are the mindset. When I started working for the school system, the mindset of kids is totally different now than they were. And my concern is putting these younger kids with older kids. What is it going to do to the kids? You know, changing them around. How are you going to? Because they're already struggling. You know it, and the family know it. They're already struggling. So now we got another change. So now we got to go to this school where you got these older kids now. And what do you think is what's going to happen with the kids?
Mm-hmm. So I think we saw during COVID that our kids are very resilient.
Yes.
And they are very flexible. I think our kids, I think it's more the adults who are struggling, honestly. I think that being a former middle school principal, I think it would be a dream to have a middle school building with 5th, 6th, and 7th graders because honestly, 6th graders, maturity-wise, are about like 5th graders. I think if we were talking about putting 5th graders with 8th graders, then I start to have some heart palpitations because I agree with you. There's a big difference maturity-wise between an 8th grader and a 5th grader. One of the things that we've talked to our principals about is we still want those 5th graders to be treated like elementary. They still need to have a lot of guidance and they need a lot of work on transitions. And our 8th graders, like I said, a lot of them are already going to high school programs. They play sports with high schoolers. So we've heard more about 5th graders. I think we know we have to give a lot of support to kids all of the time. So our support will be the same because we support kids where they're at. I think the support may be more for the families who are struggling with that change. I think our principals are very prepared if they need to work with those students. You know, during the pandemic, we moved all of our 4th and 5th graders to the middle school buildings, and then we moved them back at the end of the year. They were fine. I think it was more of our adults who struggled with that. But you are right, our kids are very different. Our family dynamics are very different, and our families need a lot of support. And so we have really been building our mental health supports in our school, but we've also been building our family supports because it's just a new time. And you're right, you know that. You've seen kids for quite a number of years, and there are changes to them. But you know, their 5th grade teachers will be coming with them if we make that option. So they'll have familiar people from the elementary school. 8th grade teachers will be moving with their kids to the high school if it happens. And so, you know, I think it is a change. It's funny you were talking about changes. I'm a Stanton River High School graduate. My husband's a Liberty graduate. My husband went to Liberty, to Stanton River, back to Liberty, all in 4 years. So I do think in the past we've made these changes.
Well, that's my point.
And, you know, he's perfectly, you know, normal guy. And so I think it's harder for families. And so I think the kids will be okay. I think it's our families will support.
You're talking about the adults and maybe about the family, but if you're talking about the teachers, I think the school board throw them under the bus. And they do too.
With moving them?
No. When they came up with this proclamation for parents that was already in place, they threw teachers under the bus. They did, and teachers felt that, and it hurt them. And now a lot of them are just marking time to get out of your schools, you know. because now they feel underappreciated. You know, I don't know what's being done. And this is not about y'all. This is about the school board, and if we made changes, maybe we need to see if we could put them somewhere else. Because they made some decisions that really didn't click. They really didn't.
So, Mr. Carson, with all due respect, I appreciate you, you know I do. I don't know that I agree with all of your comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions about these efficiency options, but comments about the board's leadership and what the board did, this is my employer and her employer, I don't want to engage in any conversation.
We're not engaging in, we're just talking.
Yes,
As a matter of
sir.
fact, I was talking
I'm
to
here to answer
her.
questions about the efficiency options. So
Okay,
any
but-
questions I can
and we-
answer
and
for you
we're
about the
doing
efficiency
that.
options, I'm happy.
And
to
we're
answer.
doing that.
Okay.
And we're doing that. And I was talking to her. And I meant what I said, you know, and I would be more than happy to tell them. But we keep changing things around in this school. The kids are the one that's going to be hurting with this. We keep talking about this district, that district, all this district. Have you seen the growth that's getting ready to come to Bedford? We're going to be going through this again. But some of the decisions that they made, I think, is going to hurt us in the long run. With Forest, the growth down there, you're going to be working on that a lot sooner than you think. Because I don't even think they finished down there yet. They're not finished. And I'm not talking about you two. I'm not. You know, I know you work for them. I know that they are your bosses. I understand that. But I'm just saying that when we talk, sometimes we talk about things and we just don't talk about them like they should be talked about. This is an opportunity for me to do that. You know, I used to come by your office. I have been by your office for a while, and I've had concerns. But I do believe that if everybody get on the same page, that we can work this thing out to where everybody's happy. But moving these kids around, I know you have to do it. I know things are happening. I know that, and not only that, but you got another factor that you got to figure. You got churches now that's opening their own schools, that's taking students, you know. I think that's going to increase. My problem, I just don't want to see these kids miss out, and a lot of them are. They're going to miss out. And you can put it on the adults, you can put it on teachers, but these kids are going to miss out on a lot of things. That should be the focus, but it's not.
Any questions? Any more questions? Bob? Darrell, you got any questions?
Just maybe one or two. The concept of moving the early childhood to primary, that has some merit. It's like a lab for that particular course of instruction. I'm not sure, and some of the folks that have asked me these questions are comfortable with moving the amount of students away from Bedford Primary that we're talking about moving away into the Bedford Elementary or wherever. In your original presentation, you said something about that the fifth graders, once you move them, they would still be treated as fifth graders, and the eighth graders would still be treated as eighth graders. While I do appreciate the concept, and just I don't know if that's really practical. You move them to another environment, that the faculty that is there working with those, they're going to eventually migrate to, you know, whatever that environment is, and that's how those students will be educated and treated and so on. So I don't know that I really share the merit with that. The point you brought up, as far as the difference between an eighth grader and a fifth grader, that is a valid point. I'm not sure that it seals the deal for me, but I think it is a valid point. Mr. Foreman, and part of his question was about the quality of education across the district, whatever zone we're talking about. I guess the question that I would have is, you take those parents out of the equation who are employees of the school system. Why are those parents moving their children away from Liberty or away from Forest or away from Stanford? I think that's a valuable piece of the puzzle here. You know, understand that if you live here in town and you work at Jefferson Forest, yes, I understand why, you know, a parent would want to be closer to their children. But I think that's what it taints the overall information. You know, so if there was any way that you guys could tie into that and find out, you know, okay, you want to go to JF, why? Okay, and then if it is a articulable difference that you see that it's not being provided at LHS or Staten River, then I think the board would need to move and make that whole equality of education a reality and not a concept kind of thing.
And I would just like to say, because I over instruction and, you know, we offer options for our kids that are very, very similar. Sometimes our issues become we can't find a person who's credentialed to teach college level courses at the high school. We call that dual enrollment. So we might have a dual enrollment class we can offer at Liberty High School, which right now we do, that we can't offer at the other two schools. What we have talked about as 3 high school principals and a team is how can we make that option available to other students? Can we do that virtually? Can we have a teacher moving between schools? So we've grappled with that a lot just because of the distance and the 3 schools. You know, our hardest thing is our CTE programs because it's very hard to find career and technical education teachers. So some of those programs look different, but it's really based on what students express as something they're interested in. For instance, we have been hearing from our students that they want to go into the education field. And so the other thing we're doing is we're moving our Teachers for Tomorrow programs to our high schools so that we can get our high school kids to go into those programs so we can grow our own students. So I think there is this idea out there that the 3 schools aren't equal, but to us they're equal. I mean, I'm just as passionate about Stanton River as I am Liberty as I am about JF. I grew up in Bedford. So our team works really hard to make it equal. I think there is this falsehood out there that people think that there's not an equality. But when parents reach out and say, I really want my child to have this course, we now have virtual options, or we work with our counselors to try to get kids what they want and what they need for whatever career they're going into. So I just want to say that because we do try really hard to do that. And we, you know, we're not perfect, but we want to get better at that.
Well, the makeup at my house is similar to yours. I went to Staten River and my wife went to Liberty. And you mentioned this perception. You know, perception is sometimes stronger than truth. And so then, to me, that says that the burden is for the board to try to do something to make that perception actually what it is.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Right. Thank y'all for coming, and I'll try to be brief. But you know, Dr. Whipper, you know my passion. And I grew up in this community. You know my history with Bedford Primary School, with my father being a principal there for many, many years. And so it's not only important to this community, it's pretty important to me personally. So I just want to. Some of your board members, Dr. Bergen may not have known that. I know you know that, but I just wanted to get that out there. But so these are some of the conversations I've had with my citizens, my neighbors. And, you know, my property. I live right in that neighborhood, so we're concerned about option 4. I'd just like to go a little more specific about. You know, the 5th graders moving into kind of a middle school environment, eighth graders moving into a high school. I actually took the time this weekend to see how many of those schools are like that in the Commonwealth of Virginia. There's only 6 schools in the whole Commonwealth that have 5th graders in with 6th and 7th graders and 8th graders.
Yeah, public schools.
Public schools, yeah. I mean, yeah, this is all off the Virginia Department of Education. I took the time to do the research. There's only 21 high schools in the whole Commonwealth of Virginia that have 8th graders in them. And most of those are located in localities that are very rural, very poor, and in most of those systems, they don't have but an elementary, a middle, and a high school. So the rest of the Commonwealth, the school systems believe in the elementary system of K through 5, the middle school system of 6 through 8, and the high school 9 through 12. I mean, that's the majority of the school systems in the Commonwealth, follow that system. And there's got to be some reason for that, from an academic standpoint, a psychological standpoint, an emotional standpoint, and a social standpoint for these kids. So I would ask you why we think that makes more sense than what everybody else in the Commonwealth is doing.
I think we were asked to provide options that would not cost the taxpayers money. And so when that's what you have to work with, we looked at capacities and we looked at what we had to, what we have to work with, what we know we're going to have to put out to keep maintaining all of the buildings that are not at capacity. How do we keep from having to build another school? So I think it's not that we have a different philosophy on education. It's that our board asked us to come up with options that would not cost anybody money. Okay. So that kind of limits you. And so we worked with what we had in those parameters, if that helps.
Next, talking about the capacity of Bedford Primary and Bedford Elementary a little bit. Currently, obviously, there's no capacity issues. Bedford Primary is like 82%. Bedford Elementary is like 72%. So we're talking about one of the big benefits of y'all's option 4 and plan is to expand preschool, or pre-K, and I certainly support that, especially in this community where we've got challenges, we've got a demographic that is economically and maybe disadvantaged, and we recognize that, and so to give these kids the best opportunity, I fully support pre-K, and if there's a way to expand that, I would love to see that. So let's talk about your numbers from your study, okay? So currently Bedford Primary has capacity for 352 students.
I'm going to take your word for it. I don't have it in front of me, so I'm...
Right off of your
Well, I'm sure it is, but I didn't bring it with me. But yeah.
That's fine. So just go with me through this, okay? And based on the Virginia Department of Education, your fall membership, you got 289 students in that facility right now. So that gives you, 63 spaces for 63 kids to be at 100% capacity. So wouldn't there be room to add 1 or 2 other pre-K classes in that facility right now without moving anything?
So I think some of what we were thinking is for consistency in curriculum, if we had one zone doing something totally different than 2 others, that can be problematic when we're trying to support schools. We also, we had already decided to move our early childhood class over, and so we knew we needed some space for that. And the other piece was the difficulty Bedford Elementary has staying accredited because of test scores. And what I do know is that continuity from kindergarten on does give the ability for students to have a solid curriculum in one school with teachers that they know. And I think it would help academically that performance at Bedford Elementary that does affect Bedford Primary's accreditation. Could we fit more preschools in? Yes. I think it goes to, can we afford it? Part part of the efficiency options is that if we're not renting a building, we can also, there's a local match we have to put into preschool. So not only are we adding, but we would have to find the money to do that local match. So it was a couple of things coming together to be able to add those preschools.
Okay. So how many children are in the, or how many students are in the pre-K program at Susie Gibson?
You mean our high school students?
Yes, how many are in that program that you're talking about moving that class to the primary?
Yeah, so it can hold up to 15. I believe the last we heard they had 7 students.
Okay.
And part of it is because they only work with students part of the day because we have juniors and seniors coming at different times.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the things that we found appealing by putting that program in a preschool building. Our preschoolers are there all day long. So whether you're coming in the morning or afternoon to Susie G. Gibson, you would have exposure and you would have kids there to work with, which we can't quite make happen at Gibson, just because that program, that preschool program is not a Bedford County program in the sense of we provide transportation and all of that. Its parents are bringing them. It's designed to be just a couple hours a day. I think it's 3 days a week. So it's not a full, like we do the VPI, the Virginia Preschool Initiative. It's not one of those programs because the way the kids move in and out of Gibson. So this was a way to say, the kids are already here, they're going to be here, it doesn't matter. Now let's bring our high school students over to work with them.
Do you have a feel for what the current teacher to student ratio is for the primary and the elementary school now on average?
They use their Title I money to help a lot. So they have smaller class sizes. So I would say and this is an average, probably 18 to 1, 19 to 1.
In both schools?
Mm-hmm. And that's an average, but they use their Title I money to have smaller class sizes, where some of our schools have 21 to 1, or their higher ratios.
So what if you combine those all into the elementary school, how much is that going to increase or decrease it?
So we're still going to provide staffing exactly the way we would provide it to Bedford Primary. So the classes wouldn't get any bigger. I mean, we fund our schools on a staffing standard. So when we run there's no change in teachers. So part of this efficiency is not any teacher losing their job or growing class sizes. The efficiency is the students being together and the building projects that are happening around.
All right. Let me just kind of go at it a different way. Bedford Elementary School was built for 4 grades. That's how it was designed. That's how it was built because our community had a primary school. And I find it disheartening a little bit that every time there's some budget, we got to cut some budgets. It's this animosity towards the primary school. It's happened several times, and I just don't understand it. There's 26 primary schools throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. You add pre-K to that, there's 40 of them. It's served this community well for 60 years. Our community's proud of it. Our community, it's a part of our character of our community, and we're getting tired of every time, y'all get, and it's tough. Believe me, we got to make budget decisions up here, and I understand that, but it always seems to be on that we're the ones, and the Stanton River Zone's the ones that has to feel the pain the most. So anyway, but let's talk about if you do this combined school in this plan. You know what the capacity percentage of Bedford Elementary Schools is going to be?
I don't know that I've looked at it, but it's going to probably be up in the 90s.
94%. So you're going to create a capacity problem with this plan, and then you're only going to be using the primary, which was built for a school facility, at 30%. So you're going to grossly underutilize that facility. We'll talk a little bit more about your other plans here in just a moment, for some space. But So, I mean, you're gonna have to heat that building. You're gonna have to, is cafeteria staff gonna be required for, you're gonna have to, so now you're gonna have cafeteria staff for 100 students? You know, you're not convincing me that's efficient, but that's y'all's decision, but you're not convincing me yet, okay? Let's see, where was okay, so we combined that school, you're at 94% capacity. You got room, according to your numbers, you got room for 39 students. So my question to you all is, obviously that's a short-term solution. You've heard the stories, and you know, I'm hoping your planning staff is talking to our planning staff. We got 60 new apartments under construction. We've got 130 single-family homes that have been approved for rezoning, and there's a whole bunch more coming. So I would advise you start talking about plans to maybe expand Bedford Elementary, turning Bedford Primary into a K through 5, K through 5 school, not a K through 4 school. I'm just telling you, it's coming faster than we're expecting it, faster than you are expecting it, but it's coming. Your chairman told me one time, you know, you want more kids in Liberty High School, you know, get more development here. Well, I took him up on that challenge. We've taken him up on that challenge, and we're going to do everything we can to grow this community and in the future, and it's coming. You can talk to our building inspector. You can talk to our planning director. You know.
Which is why in our option, you know, I want you to know, option 4 is the final option.
I know.
And we were very clear that we want to keep that facility operational because we are hearing there's going to be growth in Bedford. And we hope that that will extend to Big Island and, you know, Bedford all over. We would love to have more kids in our schools, so.
I'll just talk about the gym real quick. So just last year, your board unanimously, as part of their capital improvement plan, unanimously, that means everyone that's currently on that board, approved as to go to the Board of Supervisors to ask for funding through the Virginia Literary Funds to build the primary gym. It was number 3 on your capital list. I greatly appreciate the fact that finally there's going to be some improvements at Liberty High School. And removing the chairs in that auditorium that I sat in 1983. CG sat in there a lot before that. But, you know, so I thank you all for that. You know, we're glad to see that. But once again, every time there seems to be some budget pressure, this will be the 3rd, 4th, I don't remember how many times our community has been promised that gym, has gotten funding for that gym, and it gets yanked out from under us. And once again, it's getting old. So, can you explain to me why just last year, what changed from just last year to now? Last year you knew this budget pressure was coming, but you know, in less than 6 months, say, you know, you went from promising us to try to get that gym to, hey, we're going to close your school.
Well, we're not closing the school.
In effect, you are. In effect, you are.
No, it's still going to be Bedford Primary, and it's going to be a preschool center if that's what our board chooses to do.
Right.
If we were closing the school, we would do no maintenance on it. We would do no upkeep. We're getting ready to replace the flooring in Bedford Primary. That project's going on this summer. So we don't have in our minds to close the school. I think, again, when the board asked us, what can you do for no money? We were providing them options as they requested. And that's all we can do. We
understand.
provide options,
you know, I'm just, these are the things that I'm hearing. These are the things that this community is talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm just making sure you all are aware of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure your board's listening tonight, they'll be aware of it. So,
And I do hope, I mean, we still have our public hearing Thursday night, that we have plenty of slots if anybody wants to speak. You can sign up with our clerk, and we also have a town hall next Tuesday night at Stanton River High School in the library, where the board members are meeting with the community. And I would encourage the community to come out and speak at either one of those opportunities.
last one, we talked about it at the last meeting. The proposed change in uses of the primary school, office space, IT work facility. We have a zoning ordinance in town. We feel pretty strongly about our zoning ordinance, and that neighborhood is currently in an R1 residential district, and we feel pretty confident that those changes in uses would require some type of rezoning process. And you're certainly more than welcome to, go through that process, apply for a change in use, and try to get a conditional use permit for those changes. We hope you all would follow our zoning ordinance. It is ours. It's legally binding.
What
And
specifically are you concerned about that would be different than what the school is used for now?
well, you've admitted it. You've admitted that there's going to be offices in there for itinerant staff. You've admitted that there's going
Which
to
we
be.
currently have. I mean, we have,
Well, then you may be in
Itinerant
violation now.
staff.
Then.
okay.
So an IT work facility. That's going to create more traffic over there. It's going to create more. That neighborhood struggles with parking as it is.
I don't know if you've been over there during a car rider day.
I've
You
been-
live
I go
there,
by there every
couldn't be
morning.
any more traffic than there is right now.
Yeah, but they're not parking there all day long. They're not parking there all day long on our streets. I mean, there's issues there. It's a nice residential neighborhood, and if you got out and walked College Avenue and asked people what they thought about having those type of uses in there, you would hear what I'm hearing. But anyway, I think that's.
I did have one more question.
Yeah, and that's my last one, so.
One more question, and you may have answered it, but I was trying to remember.
okay.
I was going to ask, what kind of educational research have you done to find out the effects it would have on the kids moving into a middle school in the 5th grade, or those moving into high school in 8th grade? Is there any educational research you've done to see the effects of that?
Actually, I have, and it all boils down to the effectiveness of the teachers and the school. And that's the bottom line for any school, no matter what grade levels, no matter what kids you put in it. It's the effectiveness of the teachers and the principal, and how they work and feel about those kids, and the support that our community and parents are giving us. So research is based really on how effective is the school itself. I think one of the things about 8th graders at the high school, what some of the research is telling us, is that it gives kids more opportunities earlier, more connection to high school credit courses, which can sometimes be very beneficial if they can take college level courses, and that cuts down on the cost of college later. We hope also we could improve and expand some of our CTE programs, so our 8th graders can start them a little bit earlier, so we can get them involved in extracurricular activities a little quicker. So definitely a lot of research on 8th grade, not as much on the 5th grade, but what it kind of boils down to is the effectiveness of the teachers, and I think we have great teachers who would be able to work with any kids anywhere.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Got just one little follow-up thing here. How many elementary schools in the forest zone are at capacity or near capacity?
All
Could
right,
you
so
tell
there
us?
are 5, and 3 are at capacity, and 1 is actually over capacity.
One of the 3 or?
One of the 3.
Okay. Okay. So as time moves forward, how will this overcapacity of our elementary schools in that zone, when will it impact the capacity of the high school there, of JF? You understand my question?
Yeah, I don't know that I could give you an accurate answer on that. I mean, the JF has the last measured capacity was 1,600 students, and we're pretty far from that. And there have been some extra classrooms created inside the facility, so the principal there actually thinks there's probably more capacity. The other piece that's hard to measure is so many of our high school kids go off campus, so they go to early college programs, they go to Gibson. So a lot of our juniors and seniors aren't on campus all day long. So our high school principals feel comfortable that they'll be well within capacity, that they're not going to be over capacity at any time. Even with the growth in the FAR zone, that's not been a concern we've had.
Okay. And just, you mentioned that the board sort of tasked y'all with finding a resolution that costs no money. Redrawing a boundary line costs no money.
Thank y'all. I know, you answered a lot of the questions that our community is asking us. We'll be able to relay those, and I know I know those decisions aren't easy. We've had a few of those here recently ourselves, so we understand that.
And please know, we're happy to answer any questions. If you think of something after tonight and you want to call me at the office or Dr. Bergen, we're happy. We want people to we want to be transparent and answer any questions that we can.
I appreciate it. And if any of your board members would like to talk, pass it along, that I talked to Mr. Daniels, I don't know, a couple Saturdays ago, and had a good conversation, and pass these same concerns on to him. But I'll be happy, and I'm sure any of us would be happy to have a one-on-one conversation with any of your board members as well.
Sure. So in closing, let me just repeat a couple of things. Board might not do any of these options. They asked for efficiency options so they could get feedback. You've given good feedback tonight. The board has had 2 town halls already. There's a third one next Tuesday at Stanford High School in the library. Anybody that's concerned, come and talk to your school board members. This week, there is a public hearing on all of these efficiency options. Anyone can come and speak. The board wants the feedback about these efficiency options. They may choose to do none of this after they get the feedback. Or they may choose to do some mix and match of these. Our job was to provide the information for them, provide the information for the community, and allow the conversation to occur, and for the community to inform their elected school board what direction they want to go. So we appreciate your questions, and I'm happy to answer them for you, and look forward to having more dialogue with you in the coming days and weeks at those events.
We do.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Where were we?
Next item is, let's see here, council comments.
Was anybody else on?
Huh?
Was there anybody else on public?
I don't think there was anybody. No, Mr. Hackett was.
Okay, I thought we had 3, but that's fine.
Is there anybody else who wants to speak during public comment? No? Okay. All right. Council comments. Darrell, any?
Wait a minute. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out and listening in. Got an email from our post commander at American Legion, and this is what he said. Special congratulations to Marissa, I won't tear this up. Parikh, yeah, for winning the Virginia Department High School Constitutional Oratorical Contest. Marissa is a senior at Liberty High School and an early college enrollment student. Marissa has presented her prepared knowledge and assigned subjects on our Constitution at the post level on January the 23rd, and then to the district level in Lynchburg on January the 28th, and then to the Western region on February the 10th, and at the department level in Norfolk last Friday, March the 1st. She will compete at the national level for a 3-day event at Hillsdale College in Michigan. This is the second student from this area to make it that far. It is the first one to actually win that department level contest since World War II. So congratulations, sir.
Awesome. Bob? Stacy? CG?
Yeah, I just want to mention that this afternoon at 2 p.m., I attended the contract negotiation Hilltop Community Revitalization Phase 2. Now, this is, from today, we have 120 days, or I should say Mary and staff have 120 days till July 10th to check off a few boxes and get the grant approved, which they are well on the way of getting this, which will be $1,071,644. I have to say, I've been involved in this for several years. When I first came on to this as the council rep, I was a little clueless as to what is this about. But since then, and Bob and I have talked quite a bit, I've seen a lot of revitalization, a lot of good things happen through this. And you can go over to Hilltop and see all the new buildings, the renovated ones, and so forth. And it has just been a great thing, good experience for me. And I, again, want to thank Mary and staff for all you do. And I encourage the council to continue to support this. It is a great thing for the town. Thank you.
Oh, me. I had to, this whole time the discussion came about in the schools and moving folks around, I have to say, I started out in a one-room schoolhouse in Schenectady, New York, 6 grades in one-room school. They just got plumbing the year that I landed there. And
How far did you have to walk in the snow?
well, I actually had to walk. I had to walk a mile to the school from our property. But the funny thing, when I came to Roanoke, I was moved 5 times in the first 7 grades. So it does happen to kids, and you cope and you do what you have to do. That aside, that's only personal history, but the interesting thing that came up with me, I go to church with Bill Hackworth, who is in Roanoke, who was the attorney for the city of Roanoke. Bill mentioned, he says, what about that monument you guys have in front of the courthouse? And he was referring, I thought maybe it was the Confederate mark. He was referring to the monument about that the Bedford Volunteer Company participated in the Point Pleasant battle in 1774. It's going to be a 250th anniversary of that on October the 10th of this year. But history is all around us here in Bedford, and it's amazing how many things we don't know. But a lot of the same names of citizens are still, if you look on that monument, there's Dooleys and Owens and Hackworth and just a number of folks. They claim that this was actually the first battle of the American Revolution in 1774. Point Pleasant is in West Virginia today, and it was a battle that came about because the Shawnee apparently were getting ready to cause some problems, and companies from Bedford and Salem area with Andrew Lewis commanded the force, went to Point Pleasant and participated in this battle, and there were heavy losses on both sides. But the Indians decided to, they didn't cause problems after that. They kind of disappeared from the area and moved on, which is really fascinating what happened. But it's right out in front of our courthouse, and Bill thinks we ought to mention that in upcoming years, since it's the 250th anniversary of that. But there was Andrew Lewis was the head of that force. There was a Thomas Buford who was the captain, and Thomas Dooley. I don't know how many Dooleys we have around here. Just thought I'd mention this just for fun.
All right. Todd?
I just want to thank everybody for coming out and thank our staff for the hard work they do.
All right. I don't have anything tonight. So we'll move into report of council committees. Let's see, Mr. Carson.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, we had a property committee meeting this evening. We discussed our parks and to set up a day when we can go in and clean up our parks, straighten up our parks. We also discussed possibly upon retaining Edmund Street Park of changing the name. We discussed looking into the graveyard that's here on Otis Street. It's a very old graveyard, to see if we can find out how many graves are there and actually who the graveyard belongs to. Also, the Republican Party have been using the council chambers for a number of years. It's been pretty much, okay, but then they decided that they want to do it once a month. And once they decided they wanted to do that, it put them in a position to where our facility use policy comes into effect. So we looked into the possibility of charging a fee. The fee is not to so much generate a lot of money, but to ensure that they will have the date that they are looking for. Because as it stands now, when they use it, if something else comes up, then they won't be able to use it. That takes priority, but once we charge them a fee, then that date will be there for them. So we looked into that, and that's pretty much it, Mr. Mayor.
So the property committee kind of made a recommendation on that fee.
Yeah.
Do we want to add that to does anybody want to add that to the agenda tonight? Bring it up, obviously the town manager's looking for some type of consensus to us.
Can we put that on the agenda for next council?
Next council or?
Next council meeting, I was.
That's fine.
Is that fine? All right, so we'll just add that as an action item since it's not on here and it's kind of, a change or a potential change in our policy, then we'll just add that next time. All right. Since we're kind of going to be going a low wall, it looks like tonight. Report of other council committees. CG doesn't want to give this report, so he's going to ask me to give this report. So, two things. One, this wasn't a committee, but this was a kind of a meeting I'd put together with the downtown stakeholders that occurred on Thursday, the February 29th. Deborah, I need to get with you to help you get some minutes put together for that. But basically we addressed parking concerns and had some good conversations, some good feedback with the downtown stakeholders on some possible solutions. Mary's got some stuff she's working on for them. And then we'll have a kind of a follow-up meeting at some, 45, 60 days from now, see if we can actually come up with some action items that council could maybe take up to address some of the parking. CG, Bart, and I also met with, let's see, that was last Monday?
Yes.
What was the date on that? Come on, help me out. What was the date?
I'm retired. I don't keep up with dates.
It's a 11th,
March 4th.
No, it was March the 4th, right?
6 o'clock p.m.
So we met with our counterparts, Robert Hiss and Tammy Parker and Edgar Tuck from the Board of Supervisors. We had a pretty long kind of list of things that we talked about amongst ourselves a little bit and tried to talk to them. We had a conversation on some of these issues. Real quick, there was some discussion about some ways our electric utility is working with the Shintel group on the broadband project. There's been a few little hiccups, but we're doing everything we can to help, our electric department help out in that regard.
And I would say John Putney had very high praise for John Wagner.
Right.
And that he said John is great to work with, enjoyed him on the phone calls. he is a great asset. He didn't have as much high praise for Appalachian and Dominion, which that's understandable, but this is not their priority. But he did talk very highly of John and how good he is to work with.
We also talked about the passenger rail station, about entering into some, further conversation about funding, so we can maybe move that project ahead. They asked us to provide them some information, and Mary's gonna get them that information kind of about the grant and what it all kind of looks like, I think. So that was positive. They're interested. They're supportive of the train station.
Very much, yes.
And so I think that's some area we can work together on. Animal control, we talked about it, and it was pretty much no. We're not going to do it, and that's fine. We have clear direction from them. So that's something we'll be having to consider on in the probably near future on how we make sure that service is provided to our citizens. But anyway, so we had a good conversation about it, but pretty much the stance was no, we're not going to provide that for the town.
Yeah.
The town fire service coverage and funding, and so obviously everybody knows our town fire department answers a ton of calls in the county, and there's a current funding matrix. We talked about, is that funding matrix currently fair, adequate? Does it support all the fire departments, not just the Bedford Fire Department? They are, continue to look at the funding apparatus matrix, so that will be coming up here in the near future. And we've seen some good step up in the amount of funding there. The per call funding and that kind of stuff, there is, I think they have recognized maybe at some level that there are departments in the town that are carrying more weight than others, and they've mentioned that they're going to be looking at maybe some future changes in that funding matrix, but nothing definitive yet. Okay.
And their whole thing was they look at 4 major fire departments in Bedford and Bedford County. Bedford, Forest, Stewartsville, and Moneta that answer 90% of the calls, and the others are very inactive to a point. But they did not see any reason to increase the funding for Bedford and not the others. So they are reviewing overall funding, but we may get a little bump from that, but I'm not expecting a lot.
They did talk to us about some challenges on the EMS side that they're facing as well, with some new changes in how they get their drugs filled in their pharmacy boxes and stuff like that could potentially add pretty substantial cost to their EMS side of fire and EMS. So good. Talked a little bit about recreation, Liberty Lake Park. I think we're making some, there's a new county recreation director. So I think there will be some opportunity, hopefully, to work there. I think there was some communication issues in the past, and there's obviously still a ways to go. They did mention that they have kind of changed their model. Back when reversion was around, they were trying to set up all these different associations in different areas. Supposedly they're trying to get away from that. That didn't work here. So
that was a surprise. I did not know that had gone away. When he said that, I thought, I know the one here really never took off, but at the same time, I did not know they were getting away from those, which was a big surprise. But he did say, the more we got to talking about things, participation in football is on the decline. They're going more towards the soccer, sports like that. I mean, soccer can be just as physical, but football is on the decline. Also, don't forget the pickleball.
Oh yeah, they did say that they do have funding in their current budget, this upcoming budget, to do some pickleball courts down at Bedford Avenue, and also maybe to fix up the basketball courts down there. So hopefully that'll make it through their budget process, and we'll see some improvements down there. And let's see, a couple others talked about would they be willing to enter into any negotiations to do a solar facility out on the old closed landfill? No, not right now. They don't want to open. They don't want to open that to because they don't have a zoning ordinance in the county to allow solar facilities. Their take is they don't want to open that right now. They certainly understand the state of Virginia may take that option away from them, and if so, they said they'd be happy to talk to us as their first customer. But until then, nah.
We're first on the list, we don't know when.
And we didn't get into really much on the Bedford Center for Business, didn't go too far into that, but we just wanted to see if there was any opportunity to see if they wanted to give that back to the town's EDA and let us market it, or if, we could get them to kind of market it a little more strongly. But anyway, so it was a good conversation. It was an honest conversation, and I appreciate them, because that, we know now
Yeah, we know.
what we've got to work with and what direction we got to take on some of these issues. And that's all we can ask for is that we're never always going to agree on everything, but if we can find opportunities to work together, we want to encourage those. And we're not where we can't, we just need to know so we can figure out how we're going to deal with it.
And the one thing I thank several of them for is they were upfront and honest.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't sugarcoat it, they just told it like it was. They said, we can do this, not do that, and I said to Tammy, that's what we want to hear. Thank you.
All right, let's move. I think that was all the council committees that have met since then. All right, so
Nothing that I forgot.
any revisions to the agenda? No, we're going to take up that okay. Moving right into the public hearing for the fiscal year 24 budget amendment for grant funding. Mr. Warner.
Notice is hereby given that the Town Council of the Town of Bedford, Virginia at 7:00 p.m. on Tuesday, March 12th will hold a public hearing at the Council Hall and Town Municipal Building to consider a budget amendment for fiscal year 2024 for grant funding received in an amount not to exceed $5,031,686. A copy of the detailed budget amendment request has been available for inspection by the public in the office of the clerk of the town council in the town manager's office. Tonight, anyone who wishes to is invited to express their views on this matter.
All right, we'll open the public hearing on the budget amendment. Anybody wish to speak? No? All right, we'll close the public hearing. Next item, consent agenda, appointing members to the Planning Commission.
Mr. Jason Horn and Ms. Frances Coles have requested reappointment to the Planning Commission as their current terms expire March 31, 2024. The positions have been advertised in the local newspaper, and no other citizens have stepped forward to serve. Tonight, Town Council is requested to reappoint Mr. Jason Horn and Ms. Frances Coles to the Planning Commission, with terms to expire March 31, 2028.
All right, we have a motion. We have a motion by Councilman Haley, a second by Councilman Carson. Any discussion?
I just want to say that they have done a great job. Keep up the good work, Francis, and I know Jason's doing good. That was my first meeting last Thursday on this, and I told him I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I appreciate Mary for getting me on there, and look forward to many more good meetings and learning my way around. But these are two good ones, and I highly recommend.
I second that. There are no vacancies currently on that. Okay, all right, just want to make sure there was. All right, roll call.
Mr. Carson?
Aye.
Mr. Foreman?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Updike?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, next item is the appointment of members to the local board of building code appeals.
Two members' terms on the local Board of Building Code Appeals expire on April 30, 2024. Both current members have agreed to continue to serve on this board for an additional 2-year term. Tonight, Town Council is requested to reappoint local Board of Building Code Appeals members as follows. James Rose to a 2-year term to expire on April 30, 2026, and Jody Mayhew to a 2-year term to expire on April 30, 2026.
Do we have a motion to appoint James Rose and Jody Mayhew? Councilman Updike?
Second.
Second, Councilman Foreman. Any questions, discussion? No? Roll call.
Mr. Foreman.
Aye.
Mr. Haley.
Aye.
Mr. Johansson.
Aye.
Mr. Stanley.
Aye.
Mr. Updike.
Aye.
Mr. Carson.
Aye.
Mayor Black.
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right. Next is the adoption of the zoning ordinance. Mr.
And I
Warner.
think that was tabled previously, so to consider, you'll need to take it from the table.
All right, so we need a motion to.
But just some background to that if you wanted ahead of time.
Yes, please.
In your previous work sessions and in discussions, we talked about some outstanding issues that were of concern. I was a bit optimistic in my advice on the setback issue, and subsequently I can tell you that we've determined that it is hard to come up with language to accomplish that exactly. But given the pressing matters of development facing the community, we feel like these outstanding issues can be addressed through amendments after the ordinance is adopted. And with respect to the work that the Planning Commission has done over 4 years now, and the discussions we've had, staff is of the opinion that it would be appropriate to take action to adopt the ordinance tonight. If you do that, you'll need to designate an effective date.
Okay. So first, we need a motion to take it off the table, correct?
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilman Foreman, second by Vice Mayor Stanley, so we need a vote on to take the matter off the table.
Correct.
So, roll call. Right?
Explain that to me. You're taking the zoning ordinance issue.
It was
off
on,
the
we had
table.
put it on the table previously, correct? We tabled it, so now
You're bringing it back up for consideration.
and then we'll have a motion to.
approve it.
Approve it. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So we got a motion by Councilman Foreman and second by Vice Mayor Stanley.
Stanley, okay.
And so, roll call, yeah, we'll do a roll
Mr.
call.
Haley.
Aye.
Mr. Johansson.
Aye.
Mr. Stanley.
Aye.
Mr. Updike.
Aye.
Mr. Carson.
Aye.
Mr. Foreman.
Aye.
Mayor Black.
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, now we need a motion to adopt the zoning ordinance as presented or amended, correct?
Yes, and and I'm sorry, Jeremy, and we would recommend that it be effective immediately,
Okay.
unless you want to provide some holiday for people to make applications under the old ordinance.
And that should be included in the motion,
Okay.
stating the
All right,
effect.
so we need a motion to,
Motion to adopt the zoning ordinance effective as of immediately.
I got it. I make a motion, we adopt the zoning ordinance with the effective date as of March 12th, 2024.
Second.
all right, so now, discussion?
So you was talking about if matters or issues come up, we could.
You can always amend it.
Okay, because I don't want to get in bind and we can't amend it. That's one thing I was concerned about.
And I'd like to echo that. I just thought there was a lot of unanswered, unresolved issues from the last meeting that I didn't really see a lot of movement on in anything that I've read thus far. So I'm a little leery about it.
Yeah, I mean,
They can make amendments.
I mean, we can, obviously, we can make amendments to anything if, I think the biggest discussion last time was obviously on the short-term rentals. I mean, Councilman Updike was, wanted to look into the digital sign issue. I had the setback issue that, I've talked to Bart and Mary, and even though I'm not as happy as I'd like to be with it, I live with it, but, and there's nothing that it makes it very difficult to infringe on somebody else's property, so I get it. But
We can bring this up for, we can bring amendments up here.
Mary, how would that work if we wanted to, if we approve it as it's presented right now, and we wanted to come back and make some text amendments that hadn't gone through the planning commission. You know, how does that, I mean, do we have the authority to do that without it going through the planning commission? If we wanted to spend some more time on the short-term rental issue and maybe make some changes, could we do that first and then send it back? That doesn't make sense to send it back to the planning commission. Am I making sense?
Yes, Mr. Ray, members of council, the easiest thing to do is take what you have now and then come back with amendments that you see. If you see something is not working, just your standard process to do another zoning ordinance amendment. This one would be more targeted. You would only have to notice, again, just in the paper, whereas 3,900 letters went out for this overhaul. This would be more targeted. You still have a public hearing before the Planning Commission and yourselves, and it would be helpful if the Planning Commission did have some direction for where you would like them to see, where you would like to see changes. You can initiate that amendment yourselves. It'll just start with the Planning Commission through the same process, 2 public hearings and your action.
So maybe, I'm just thinking off the cuff here. I mean, maybe if council members have some ideas about making some changes and some of the specifics on some of this, maybe we run that through the Community Development Committee or something, and then you could take those kind of things to the Planning Commission with our thoughts and see if, I don't know, but I don't want to hold up this process any longer. We need to, there's some things in there that are really relevant to the discussion we had earlier tonight. So I think,
And I will say, the Planning Commission passed a few things Thursday contingent on us passing this.
Right.
So we do need to get this going.
So, yeah, that was, 2 projects?
Yes.
2 projects were kind of in limbo right now that until.
One was for a bed and breakfast because they didn't have the homestay option to apply for.
Right.
So the Planning Commission has recommended it come to you, but with the conditions that are in the homestay ordinance as it's written now.
Yeah.
Is everybody kind of okay? I mean, with, kind of going that route, and then, like I said, if we've got specific, I mean, we can kind of go back to the Planning Commission and say we would really like, and I don't know how that mechanism, but we'll figure that mechanism out. Okay.
Yeah.
What concerns me is that this set of circumstances comes dangerously close to a while back when Washington wanted to approve the Affordable Care Act, and it's like, no, let's just pass it because we got to have something out there. We'll worry about the repercussions later. We can fix those later. Well, it's later, and they still got issues with that particular legislation, and I just hate to see us, follow the DC example.
Fair enough.
I'm good.
Any other questions, discussion?
So, my only question I have, and I might not know, and I want to learn. So, like Councilman Updike has the issue with the short-term.
Digital signs is the one he wants to talk about.
The flash rate of digital signs, I believe, was the concern.
Speed limit.
Yeah, and that is determined by the speed limit. But the flash rate is unrelated to the speed. So flash rate is going to be 4 or 8 seconds. We follow what VDOT has. That is not spelled out in our ordinance, but it is. There's a state standard when someone comes to apply for that. But yes, so digital signs are allowed over 45 miles an hour, I believe.
And that's our position.
In the B2, yes, in the B2.
That's our position. That's no state standard or.
That's ours. That's tied to, your ordinance.
So you basically would like to see that drop that speed limit to 35?
25. It's already 35 up there.
Okay, but we'll go from 45. It's
To make them permissible or not? What are we regulating?
Planning Commission's supposed to.
You have to have a minimum speed of 35.
In order to get a digital sign. So that actually makes the ordinance less restrictive than we currently have, and I'm not sure if that would require, again, a different hearing for that, because that wasn't actually proposed change, I don't believe.
Well, my position when we had it up last time was I didn't really see the relevance of the speed limit, the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, I think is what it was.
And that's basically, I think our B2 is more tied to the faster streets, let me put it that way. If you're going slower than that, you're probably in a B1 zoning district, but 45 is generally the bypass and beyond. where there's heavier commercial.
Understood, but the way that I read that particular zoning ordinance was that it restricted that on that Burks Hill area,
Correct.
which is not a B1, it is a B2.
Correct, and it
And
is.
so a digital sign would be permissible were it not for that 45 mile an hour.
Not if we hadn't have done the traffic calming to bring it down to the 35. Right, okay.
Mr. Updike's correct. It would not be, it's that speed limit reference that's hanging it on Works Hill.
Yes. that is-
Not the actual speed itself, it's the zoning.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Which is one of the reasons why I was hoping to have data that was showing what actual speeds were in that area, but I didn't able to get that yet. So.
Can we say that the planning commission doesn't want them? I mean,
That is clear. The planning commission.
The planning commission-
They do not want digital signs.
the planning commission has been historically and still
Very
opposed to digital signs.
All right. Any other comments? All right. Roll call.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Updike?
Nay.
Mr. Carson? Mr. Foreman? Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion passes with 6 ayes and 1 nay.
All right. Next new business is the a bunch of grant funding. So the fiscal year 2024 non-competitive litter prevention and recycling grant.
Town of Bedford has been notified by the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality of a total grant award of $10,410.93 for litter prevention and recycling program activities and the extended polystyrene campaign for the period of July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024. Staff would like to request for the adopted budget to be amended to reflect the correct balance of revenue and expenditure. Tonight, Town Council is requested to approve the budget amendment, which will appropriate budget the general ledger accounts as follows: an increase in revenue in the line item entitled Litter Control Grant of $10,411, and an increase in the expenditure identified as Keep Bedford Beautiful Commission of $10,411.
All right. We have a motion. Motion by Councilman Haley. We have a second.
Second.
By Vice Mayor Carson. Any discussion?
Stanley.
I mean, Carson Stanley. You know. I told you I'm tired. Y'all one more time. Vice Mayor Stanley.
That's my son's first name.
Yeah, it's Carson. There's a Carson Stanley. You know. Sorry about that. Bob, I'm sorry about that. Okay. All right. Any more discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Updike?
Aye.
Mr. Carson?
Aye.
Mr. Foreman? Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mayor Black? Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, Bert, keep moving.
Town of Bedford continues to participate with the Department of Criminal Justice Services on training which provides funding of $1,000 per officer that attends training for the crisis intervention team. Funds from DCJS are restricted to police department expenditures only, but may be used for items such as equipment and training. Police department plans to use these funds towards the remaining amount needed to update expired trauma kits. Town Council is requested to approve the budget amendment, which will appropriate budget to the general ledger accounts listed as follows: an increase in the revenue line item identified as DCJS Crisis Intervention Team of $5,000, and an increase in the corresponding expenditure line item identified as DCJS Crisis Intervention Team expense of $5,000.
So we have a motion to approve the DCJS Crisis Intervention Team funding.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Councilman Carson, a second by Councilman Foreman. Any other discussion? No? Roll call.
Mr. Updike?
Aye.
Mr. Carson?
Aye.
Mr. Foreman?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, next one is the fiscal year 24 FEMA hospital generator grant.
Town of Bedford has received $4,840,275 and funding for installation of 2 500-kilowatt generators for the Centra Bedford Memorial Hospital from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. The total approved project costs are $4,648,860 towards the generator project and $191,415 towards subrecipient management reimbursement for a total project cost of $4,840,275. The grant acceptance was presented at the February 27th council meeting, and the item below includes the formal budget appropriation for the grant. Tonight, Town Council is requested to approve the budget amendment, which will appropriate budget to the following line items. An increase in the revenue line item identified as FEMA hospital grant of $4,840,275, and an increase in expenditure line items identified as FEMA project cost in the amount of $4,648,860 and FEMA subrecipient management of $191,415.
All right, we have, we'll get Councilman Haley.
Second.
Councilman Updike, second. Any questions on this? Nope. All right, roll call.
Mr. Carson?
Aye.
Mr. Foreman?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Updike?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, next one is the Law Enforcement American Rescue Plan Act grant.
Town of Bedford has received $157,000 in funding for law enforcement equipment through the Department of Criminal Justice Services from the American Rescue Plan Act. This grant period for the award is July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2024. The award covers eligible equipment purchased for the police department, including Toughbook laptops, ballistic helmets, rifles, and technology solutions, among other things. Tonight, Town Council is requested to approve the budget amendment, which will appropriate budget to the general ledger accounts listed as follows. An increase in the revenue line item identified as law enforcement ARPA funding of $157,000, and an increase in the corresponding expenditure line item entitled Law Enforcement ARPA expense, also of $157,000.
All right, we have a motion to approve the Law Enforcement American Rescue Plan Act grant.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so we got a first from Councilman Johansson, second from Councilman Carson. Any questions or discussion? No. All right. Darryl, you had to. So there was one question. Is this like when you're talking the grant period for this award is July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2024? So did we just apply for this grant and just now get it, and that's why we're adding it to the budget? Or has this been, just something that needed to be cleaned up from previous fiscal years?
It's partially a cleanup. We received a letter from them on June 2nd of 2023. So I did kind of hold all of the grants for one public hearing instead of holding multiple public hearings. So that's part of the reason. Okay, all right. Okay, good deal. Any other questions? Mike? No? Roll call?
Mr. Foreman?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Updike?
Aye.
Mr. Carson?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, next is fiscal year 2024 DMV Select Enforcement Alcohol Grant.
Town of Bedford has received $8,000 in funding during fiscal year 2024 for selective enforcement related to alcohol through the Department of Motor Vehicles. This grant program has been offered through DMV on the federal fiscal year basis, with the current award covering the time period of October 1, 2023 to September 30, 2024. The award covers overtime expenses incurred by the officers to participate in eligible enforcement and required training. Tonight, Town Council is requested to approve the budget amendment, which will appropriate budget to the general ledger accounts as identified below, an increase in the revenue line item entitled DMV Police Traffic Services of $8,000, and an increase in the corresponding expenditure line item identified as DMV Police Traffic Services, also of $8,000.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the DMV Select Enforcement Alcohol Grant. Councilman Updike.
Second.
Second, Councilman Haley. Any questions?
Anything related to alcohol, let's get it passed.
This is a reoccurring grant.
Yeah.
Chief,
Yeah.
and do we have a lot of officers getting that overtime money?
Staffing will allow, it goes up and down.
Understood. Thank you. All right, any other questions? No. All right, roll call.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Updike?
Aye.
Mr. Carson?
Aye.
Mr. Foreman?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, the fiscal year 2024 DMV Selective Enforcement Police Traffic Services Grant.
The Town of Bedford has received $11,000 in funding during fiscal year 2024 for selective enforcement related to police traffic services through the Department of Motor Vehicles. This grant program has been offered through DMV on the federal fiscal year basis, with the current award covering the time period of October 1, 2023 to September 30, 2024. The award also covers overtime expenses incurred by the officers to participate in eligible enforcement and required training. Tonight, Town Council is requested to approve the below budget amendment, which will appropriate budget to the general ledger accounts listed as follows: an increase in the revenue line item entitled DMV Police Traffic Services of $11,000, and a corresponding increase in the expenditure line item identified as DMV Police Traffic Services, also of $11,000.
All right, so we have a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Haley,
Second.
second by Councilman Foreman. Any questions? Nope. All right, roll call.
Mr. Johansson?
Aye.
Mr. Stanley?
Aye.
Mr. Updike?
Aye.
Mr. Carson?
Aye.
Mr. Foreman?
Aye.
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mayor Black?
Aye.
Motion carries with 7 ayes.
All right, next item, the campaign finance and reporting.
The Virginia Campaign Finance Disclosure Act of 2006, Title 24.1, Chapter 9.3, Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, provides for transparency about campaign finance in Virginia by requiring the filing of campaign finance reports with the elections registrar by candidates, campaign committees, and political action committees. However, the act excludes towns with a population below 25,000 unless a candidate accepts contributions or makes expenditures in excess of $25,000, or the town council so provides by ordinance under Virginia Code Section 24.2-945A. Further information on campaign reporting is published by the Department of Elections. As requested by council at its last meeting, the town attorney has prepared the enclosed draft ordinance for review. Tonight, Town Council is requested to review the draft ordinance and, if acceptable, direct its placement on a future agenda for adoption.
So you're looking for just an action on whether to place it on the agenda in the future? To
Yes,
take a vote on?
with any,
So you're looking for a motion, a second, and a vote, or just some type of consensus? So what do you think we need to do, Mr. Carroll?
I think a consensus would be fine.
Okay. So is anybody got any comments? If not, is that fine, just a consensus?
Yes,
And we
yes.
can, so what's everybody thinking?
I'm liking it.
I'm good with it.
I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, there was some, I did get some feedback just from, just to pass this along before we take it up on next, to think about as well, is, you know, it's sometimes difficult to get people that do want to run and serve on this, you know, on this council and in our, you know, different roles in the town. Have we thought about, is this going to make it a barrier to somebody that wants to try to run and serve? And, you know, is that going to be a detriment to getting good people to run? I'm not weighing, but you know, I have thought about that, and I'll continue to think about that, but just wanted to put that out there that I had a conversation with a couple people about that. So anyway, but I'm good with putting it on a future agenda. So I'm good with that too. So
on a future agenda for future discussion.
A future discussion and an action item. Yes. All right, so we're good there? Everybody good? Yeah. Okay, Bart, you got what you need there?
Yes, sir.
And the last thing, Gary Wake, you married Wake?
Question is, are we? Or will we?
I'm gonna pay for this one. I know I'm gonna pay for this one. That's all right.
We only have an hour with you, so bear with me. Get us back up to speed here. Okay. As you know, I am Mary Zirkle. I'm Director of Planning and Community Development, and also the Department of Economic Development is under that umbrella, in a separate department, but also under what we do. So this evening, we're going to go very quickly through what you already know, but I want you to be aware, just in case there is something that you haven't heard us say. So there's a lot of back and forth between economic development and community development, so it's going to get a little messy, but here we go. So we all know economic development is about making it rain money, and incentives we just throw out willy-nilly. However, this is not fully the case. There's an 80-20 rule that runs behind all of what we do here. So the big part is that 80% of staff time should be spent on retention and expansion. We need to keep what we have and help them grow. Next, the 20% left over is attracting new. So these are things you're running after, chasing after, finding new stuff. And part of that 80% that I spend my time on is business retention and expansion visits on an annual basis for generally our largest employers, also our smaller ones as well. What we want to know is what do they need from the town to make their lives easier so that they stay and grow in Bedford. So this can be facility improvements, this can be workforce issues. You know you've heard that from everyone who can't find anyone. So we partner our businesses with those agencies that can provide the services they need for hiring or whatever it might be. We also, of course, then have the incentives for improvement properties that are in the enterprise zone. So from paint to HVAC on down. So moving on to the 20%, there's two ways this goes. It's someone finding us or we're going to find them. So how they found us, we have a linear process for this. So keep in mind the VC before contact is very important. But generally, we'll get a contact from a prospect, whether it be a startup business or a new business that's coming to Bedford, like Lady Legacy that just opened on Main Street, or if it's a chain like Royal Farms or Dunkin' that we're expecting to open very soon for both of those this month. So during that time, we get a contact. There's due diligence that they do. We get a plan in that's a concept. They go, will this fly here? We all meet with the different agencies and pull it together and tell them yes. Generally, yes. And that goes into plan review for both site plan and building permits so that they can be issued. And then the building inspection side of the house picks up with construction and inspections and issuing a CO so that we can all be joining Royal Farms in their opening on March 25th. So the other part of that, we hunt for them. So if they haven't found us yet, we are going to try and find them. And the big thing we need and what we lack is sites. What's ready, who's ready, because they want to move in now or yesterday. So when we have a site, I can contact a prospect in one of the 4 target industries that are laid out in our strategic plan from our Economic Development Authority. If we don't do it that way, then I do respond to requests for information, and then we move on, similar process. There's a site visit, then it goes on through plan review and approval, and then they open, we hope. The other part of this, as I mentioned, is to have a site ready, and we have partners in this. The Virginia Economic Development Partnership has a site out there for all sites that are readily available in the town. We have 3 right now, one with a very large structure, and then 2 others that are business parks, and one of those which just came in on July 1. So going back to the how do we approach the 20%, it's all about attraction. How are these things working together? So for us, our department is just making Bedford the best that it can be. This gets to a quality of life and community development, and also getting our brand out there and developing the brand that people recognize as, oh yeah, I want to be in Bedford. So basically this can range from providing education for helping people with historic tax credits to renovate their historic properties, generally in downtown, on up to actually site control. And this is what our Economic Development Authority is working on right now, is acquiring the opportunities to make those available. So we have the Winona Metal Workforce Training Center that we are desperately trying to get to closing on. So we are moving forward with that, but certain things unforeseen with a internationally owned company. And then, as you are well aware of the hotel, that was one of those things we actively sought out because it was part of a plan and we just knew we needed it, but we were able to pull together what we needed to make that happen. So thank you for your support on that. Other quality of life issues are just meeting people where they are, providing what they need to be in Bedford, simple as transportation. And it can be really, again, a team effort with everyone going in on that. And sometimes we just need to get in a room and talk about what we want it to look like, and that's what happened with the school project. So as I said, we're going between economic development and community development to make Bedford what it is. So you can see what's going on at Elba. We expect additional work to be going on there for the county. They're very excited for the work they did there at the end of South Bridge Street there. And on down to just moving things along wherever we can. It takes a lot to get something going, and this is one of those high priority things that we just knew needed to happen, and so we did everything we could to make this one come to fruition so that 620 Railroad has become the 620 at Bedford with 3 commercial units in that as well. So moving on to the other part of community development is building the brand and just brand awareness of what we need to be putting out there. So 2018 we rebranded and we have a brand, which is very cool, I think. So then we're able to use that and other things like the TRAPES app we did to direct work to Centertown area. And most recently, we partnered with Bedford County in the National Site Selector magazine. And just as a side note, we did just have our annual Economic Development Authority meeting jointly with the town and county. That was very successful. And we did talk about Bedford Center for Business and trying to have some conversation about what is a shared vision for moving that forward. And so the current campaign is more like just be in Bedford, and what does that look like? So this is what I've been putting out, and I haven't been real active in the marketing just because we've got a lot of stuff going on here lately. So, and I just wanted to help you be familiar with our betterinbedford.com site. That is what we have as a target for the economic development site. This is where I send people because it has everything we need to do for resources about who to contact, what we offer in incentives, and then why someone would want to be in Bedford. So, and then another thing is just moving things forward that we know are going to happen. It was really exciting to see Bedford on a map. I'm like, where did they get that? But I'll take it. So we appreciate the conversations that have been had at the county, and I am meeting with the Department of Rail and Public Transportation tomorrow to talk about how they are going to help us with the Christie grant. They've been given the thumbs up to do that. So this is a good thing. So that, and we are back to the 80-20 thing, but this is on grant match. So we're on the hook for the 20. So you're well familiar with that, and I don't want to belabor the numbers. So just to remind you, economic development is community development, so everything we do to make Bedford better puts us on someone's map, and if not, we need to go out and find them. But again, we need to be target ready with sites. And so I'll turn it over now to, well, not yet for Gary, but I want to touch on the community development part that I am involved with. So that involves planning, zoning, and building safety. And planning has 2 paths that it takes. It's the long range and the short range. So you're familiar with the work of your planning commission and the comprehensive plan and also in the zoning ordinance. The housing authority also kind of falls under the planning realm in some ways. Zoning is the day-to-day work of what we do when we get in a site plan. We review it, get a plat review, somebody wants to move a property line that comes through the department. We also issue zoning permits and sign permits. We're flexible in every way we can and try to have a fast turnaround for this. The office also does business license issuances because there's a connection there between is someone zoned to do what they're getting a license for. It just makes it easier to put the 2 in one room. And then the Board of Zoning Appeals, if they don't like my decision as the zoning administrator, they have that outlet, which is fine. So this is how it works, and we're happy for that. And Gary's going to pick up with the building safety part of that. As I mentioned, Housing Authority is part of that team as well, and you are well aware of what the group has been doing from Mr. Stanley's update today of moving on with phase 2 of Hilltop. So we had 2 houses substantially reconstructed with that. 2 more will be done with the next phase. And I also just want to let you know that the Housing Authority is actively providing home repair grants for those who meet the low to moderate income threshold for that. So that's not just the CDBG big money. We've got their daily operating budget for that. But in general, most days I just chase squirrels. So I will now turn this over to Mr. McIver.
Thank you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Gary McIver. I'm a building official here in town. I handle all of the building inspection program as well as the code enforcement. And as you've mentioned, I also help the Housing Authority. I try to touch on all 3 of those. I'm going to hit them really quick because this could be a 3-day class. But any of you want some more details, I'll be glad to sit down with you and you can get down in the weeds and explain it in more detail. But basically, as you see here, real quick before I get into the building, I don't want to touch on the housing authority. I do assist them with field inspections. I do the preliminary investigations when the application comes in. I actually oversee and inspect the work to make sure it's done in accordance with the applications through the housing authority. And I follow up after the fact for warranty work to make sure it's held up and done correctly. That also puts me into the DHCD grant program that you heard about tonight. And so it gets to be time consuming at times, but it's a fun and good thing to have here in town. But back to the building code, this is a primary part of my job. And as you see, it is adopted by the General Assembly into state law. It has 3 parts to it, and I'll touch on them in a minute. But it's on a 3-year cycle. If you notice these codes are 2021 version. It was just went into effect in January. The state is 3 years behind because it takes 3 years for it to go through the cycle of having code amendments, updates, public hearings. Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD in Richmond, they handle that, implement it, and it goes through a 3-year cycle. Just because it says 21, we're still as up to date as most states in the country. But it's through Virginia amendments. These are actually the international codes, but the Virginia amendments turn it into the Virginia code. That's a little bit confusing, but it's titled the Virginia Uniform Statewide Building Code. We refer to it as USBC. So with that behind you, the first and second part of this are mandatory in all localities in the state. The third one is adopted by locality. So that's an optional. It's available to any locality. So also under this, there are several sub-layers to it. We also have to ensure and enforce the elevator provisions. So I have to look at the elevators. We actually don't inspect them, but it falls under our purview to make sure they have been inspected and maintained. So that falls under the building official and their program. Most people don't realize that, but that falls under that purview. Also amusement devices. A lot of people don't realize we do that either. You do bouncy houses, the traveling carnivals, all the rides. If you have a permit, when I do annual inspections for the Y, where they're in place, zip lines, rock walls. That is it's a state program that goes through our office, and that's part of the permit in USBC. It's actually governed under that. So that's another process that we have to do through our office. The building officials in appointed position, which you have appointed, we can have as many technical assistants, they call them, inspectors, plan reviewers, permit technicians to write permits and work in the office as necessary. They all have to be certified through the state. The state gives us training, gives us code books for free. They have a 2% levy that they take off the top of all permits issued in the state, and that's how they provide that to us. We're a county or town employee or city employee of the locality, but we technically work under the direction of DHCD, which is why it's an appointed position to enforce that state law. So I perform all of the duties here in town of that process, from the prerequisites with, like Mary mentioned before, when we start with site plans and plan reviews, up to the issue of we have to perform a plan review. That's a mandated thing through the USBC. I have to perform all the inspections and then final paperwork. It's stipulated very clearly in the code as to the process of what you have to do, what has to be in a permit, how it has to be issued, and whatnot. So we follow those guidelines. It is a very time-consuming process, and what most people don't realize is building inspections is probably anywhere from 60 to 75% administrative. We don't spend all day on the construction site. It's a lot of background administration that takes place. So that's just to be aware of. Let's see if I can figure out how to work this. Yes. So part one, we'll get into that. That's the Virginia Construction Code is the main document. The first chapter of this is your USBC. It's the legal provisions and the administrative provision that tells you how to issue permits, what inspections perform, and whatnot all the way through. It's also the commercial building code, but it is the umbrella document. Everything else is a sub-document of that. And you have, under this, it refers to your plumbing code, Virginia Mechanical Code, National Electrical Code, all of those. But this one trumps them all. As you can see, it's stipulated in the Code of Virginia specifically that it's based on health, safety, and welfare. It is very pro-owner oriented. It requires, and as you can see here underlined in this section, it's safety oriented for the least possible cost to the owner. Now, I know every fireman wants a concrete building with a sprinkler system. I can't require that. As long as they can meet the minimum safety standards, they are okay. And that's all we're here to do. And that way it doesn't stop or inhibit growth or whatever. So that works well. But as you notice, it's something fairly new in the code. I won't get in depth, but I just want you to be aware of why it's up here. The last line there did not used to be in the code. It's now in the state law. Energy conservation and water conservation. This new 21 code is going to be a huge driving factor on energy conservation. It's going to really drastically affect the cost of construction. It basically goes back to the 2009 code where the Federal Department of Energy mandated all states improve the energy efficiency of all structures by 30% by 2025. This one gets us there, but it's going to be costly. We argued that how did that fall under health, safety, and welfare for energy conservation? Well, the next code change cycle, they put it in the state law. So that's something you may be hearing about because it is drastically going to change and raise cost of new construction. Just a little tidbit for something that's coming up. The next part 2, is the Virginia existing building code. Now, this is a General Assembly mandate, as you'll see in this section that I pulled out of the state code, 3699-0.01. The General Assembly hereby declares they have seen that we have a lot of older buildings where it was really not practical to apply the building code to them. They would never comply. So somebody has some common sense, I didn't use that word, but anyway, to where it says the application of the building code has led to imposition and costly and time-consuming requirements that would significantly reduce construction. So this existing building code allows us to work with an older building to where you're not trying to bring the whole building up to new code compliance. Probably never could do. And that's something that we have actually, it's proven to be successful here in this town. You've seen that taking place. These upper level apartments, I'll use for example the lofts. That was one of my first big projects with it. That could not be done under the true building code for new construction, which is all we had in the past. So it's really been helpful for this area. And that's something that I use every day, and it applies very well here. But it also has provisions in it for historical structures. Now, I'm sure most of you are aware that this whole downtown area is a historical district. It applies. So it gives us some latitude in enforcement to where as long as you're meeting the intent of safety, you don't have to change the character of the building. So that really helps us in this downtown area, the type of use out of the building that you want without having to just tear it down and start over. So that's something that's been really helpful downtown. And the downside of it is very time consuming. It's the only code that requires you to have on-site preliminary meetings with the owners or developers and designers. And you pretty much just have to evaluate what you have and work with it, but it takes a lot of time. So, but it's a fun thing to do, and we've really had some success. I think you've already seen it. We've got a lot of apartments down here we didn't have before, and that's what it helps bring in. So, the town code the town ordinance has building code in it, where you adopted the USBC, but this is where it adopts part 3 that we spoke about. This is your maintenance code for existing buildings. And it designates a building official to administer that and enforce it. And this does not apply for the new construction codes. This is only for existing structures, and typically your rural localities don't have it. It's not practical, but most of your urban ones do. So this is a downtown code for your existing buildings, but you'll notice in 10-4 at the bottom where I've underlined it, our ordinance says that it shall be enforced, the maintenance code that is, with the provisions for unsafe structures. It is designated for safety. We hang our hat on safety. We don't have enough staff to proactively enforce it down to if you have peeling paint. But it is a safety tool, and that's what we use it for. And that is very important to have as a tool. But it's also you have to be careful with it. If your gutter's hanging off your house, that's your problem. If it's hanging off your house over a public sidewalk, we have a problem. That's the type of scenario that you would use it for. And that's what it's intended to be used for. Now, council with their esteemed attorneys can come up with other programs and adopt them within it. I mean, Lynchburg, we have rental programs, blight areas, you got derelict structure programs you can do. But they have to be administered under the state guidelines and staffed. So basically you have to pay for them. So they're good tools if you need them and on a big scale, but it is costly at times. So it's something you have to weigh. But for right now, what we do is a minimal standard for safety. And that is a big program. That's something that also, a lot of times you have out-of-town owners, you got remote owners. That can be time-consuming as well. Tracking down people, having this enforced, it's another time-consuming process. But it's a good one. Further with the code. Now this is the second part that I was talking about, to where this is the code enforcement. And it pretty much involves all other agencies and departments. I'm not going to read that to you. I won't run through it, but just to hit the highlights. Health and sanitation, that's when you work. I would work with the health department. I do on a regular basis everything from rats and bats to mosquitoes. So we've done them all. But we have to work together on that. Typically, I'm the one that ends up being the enforcement mechanism. I'm going to have to send a notice of violation. I'm going to have to make contact. They're more of a consultant, that meaning the health department, and we together try to work through this and get it resolved. But it's still a process to where you have to cite people, follow up, and have the abatement process gone through. Solid waste. Well, under health and sanitation, we'll back up to that. We do have the unusual ones at times, but as you well know, about next month, brush and grass. That's about a full-time job. That falls under me. I've simplified that process as much as I can, but you still have to follow up and cite people. If they don't do it, you have to have it done. If grass is too high, have it cut, and then I have to have it built. Then I have to follow up and see if it's maintained. So it's a continual process, and it's very time consuming when you get the whole thing included. So that's a seasonal thing, but it pretty much comes up all year round. And believe it or not, the abandoned motor vehicles is under the health and sanitation too. I work with the PD on that primarily. In the street they take care of it. It's on private property. I work with them. I will cite it, and they'll end up ultimately towing it. But we try to make contact and have it removed first. But those things all fall under health and sanitation, but it's multiple agencies. Solid waste, obviously, is public works. Furniture at the road, things that they can't pick up, they call me. I'm the one that has to enforce that and have it either removed by the owner or I have it removed and billed in. Again, you have to go through that whole notification process. And it works well, but it just takes time and it's not immediate. And that even goes down to placement of containers, that people that don't want to bring their trash cans in every day. It may sound minor, but there's quite a few of them done. I give them a 3-strike rule, and okay, you leave it out there 3 times in a row, we're just gonna take it and you lose the privilege. But really, things like that, it takes time to make multiple contacts, and I do get a lot of complaints about that. So there's a lot of little aspects that come into play there. Street, sidewalks, public ways, the same thing, and things that the road that Public Works runs into that needs to be pushed, and they call me for that enforcement mechanism. Now, utilities, people don't realize also, most people don't, that I help the power utility with existing services that have been off for a long period of time. I go in and check them for safety before they cut them on. And if you have a building that's been off for 2 or 3 years, and somebody comes in and have it just re-energized, they may not even live here. I jokingly tell people I look at 100 for no reason, but that 101st one makes the other 100 worthwhile. Because when the power company pulled out, probably the next truck it pulled in would have been fire department. And that really has proven to be a huge safety factor. And that's really, and it comes up, it can be fairly time consuming as well. It's on a regular basis, but it is a nice safety feature to have here in town. Then we go to zoning. Of course, zoning is always a lot of work, but it's a constant. It actually blends with the building code, as you saw in Mary's presentation. It picks up and works with them in the intermediate, and we go through on new construction. I check site setbacks for the buildings. We do heights. All of their issues, the zoning issues, I check on site as part of the building permit process. That's actually referenced in the USBC to do that. So not only do I do it for new construction, but you got improper uses. People, like she said, would get a business license to do one thing and do another. Again, I'm the enforcement mechanism. If somebody acts up, I go make contact, have it remedied, or cite them. If we have to, we'll take them to court. And that's how we help interactively. When I go to court, I bring the zoning administrator with me as a witness, and they've been really supportive. Signs. You all know, anybody seen the back of that little truck I drive, know that it's full of those little wire signs. I pick them up literally by the hundreds. This place would be a wreck. I get shell shocked when I go to Forest or Bonsack when they're just cluttered up. The bigger signs, again, I do that as an enforcement mechanism for the zoning ordinance, because I'll make a contact and tell them they got to take it down or get a permit or whatever they need to do. If it's a little wire signs at the stoplight or stop signs, I'll pick them up, throw them in the truck, go away. But that's a constant process. Chickens. Chickens are in the zoning ordinance. That's not animal control. So you get some escapees, or you get a rooster. If somebody hears in the subdivision, guess who gets to go find it and have that rooster removed? And what people don't realize is that in this town, sometimes that can be a mighty large task. So anyway, I'm going to leave you with that one. But any specific questions, like I said, I'll get down in the weeds in some detail with you if you'd like. But I try to keep this short and sweet and just give you an outline of what I do and why I do it.
You know, Gary, real quick, you mentioned utilities. How long would a building have to be vacant before you would go back and inspect it? 3 months, 6 months, or would it be up to the...
Set up on a 30-day.
30 days.
But we're thinking of extending it to 90 because it's really 2 months to be that simple. We've got a couple of ordinance changes coming up. When we do that, we'll probably extend it to at least 90 days.
Yeah. Good deal, thanks.
Thank you for all your work, Gary. I mean, you got a lot, and we recognize that. And, but thank you for everything you did. Mary, likewise.
All right, any other questions?
Wow. He's got the chicken. Can we put that?
See, that's the benefit of waiting till the end, Gary. All right, nothing else. We're adjourned.